Has Sonic the Hedgehog become overshadowed?
Pun entirely intended.
A few weeks ago, I released a video that discussed the recent trademark that was filed by Sega called Shadow the Hedgehog. This led a lot of people to believe, including myself, that a new Shadow the Hedgehog game of some sorts could definitely be in the works. This would not be shocking because as of late, Shadow has almost become the co-lead of the Sonic franchise. Almost everywhere you go and Sonic is there, Shadow is usually alongside of him, whether it's a promotional piece, whether it's merchandise. Sometimes Shadow will be the face of a piece of Sonic marketing material, the vehicle that is able to sell this upcoming Sonic project. For instance, the new Sonic X DC crossover that you're seeing everywhere online and in stores, they announced that with the Shadow as Batman animation. It would not be a stretch at all to say that Shadow's popularity over the past year has grown immensely, and has led a lot of people to say that not only is Shadow overshadowing Sonic's other supporting cast, but he might be overshadowing Sonic himself. Is this the case, and is this really happening? Let's discuss today. Until 2024, Shadow the Hedgehog was entirely dormant. The character had no significant presence in any real piece of Sonic media. The last time that character made a real proper appearance was in 2006. Yes, he made appearances in Sonic and the Black Knight and various spin-off titles, but the character was reduced to an atom essentially, popping up very brief and watered down to the most bare bones definitions of who that character is. The character was even brought over to the Sonic Boom sub-franchise, but was boiled down to just being a schoolyard bully essentially. You could even see that carry over in the meta era, where that's just not Shadow. But thanks to Paramount, and I'm not trying to be a glazer for that company, they almost forced Sega into a corner. Hey, we're going to be using Shadow in this next movie. He will be the focal point. He will be the star, essentially. You can choose to work with us on this or not. And Sega took their opportunity. They made 2024 the year of Shadow, where we received so much Shadow content it was ridiculous. Of course, the movie, but also a new game, Sonic X Shadow Generations, a port of Sonic Generations that had an entire new Shadow expansion, essentially a new Shadow game. We got animations, we got promo, we got merchandise, so much Shadow. Even Sonic Racing Crossroads, which was announced in 2024, was announced with a trailer that only featured Shadow. Imagine that even in 2023, them announcing a new Sonic game without Sonic even being in the trailer. And it's not even like that stopped it last year. Shadow is the co-face of the Sonic Rumble app. You can find t-shirts in Target where it's just Sonic and Shadow on there. I'm looking at merchandise in my room, and Shadow is kind of the face of a lot of these merchandise products, where Sonic is also featured on there. I can go over various examples and instances where Shadow is the face of these different pieces of Sonic products or media. But the question comes down to, is Sonic being overshadowed, and by proxy, his friends? Let's talk about Sonic's friends first, because I think that is a big conversation to have. Sonic has a large supporting cast of very popular characters, including Knuckles, who received his own spin-off series that's nothing to scoff at. And of course, you have characters like Tails and Amy, who are the other most popular characters in the brand. And while in the 90s, yes, Tails received games as well as Knuckles, Amy hasn't really received a lot. And as of recent years, the other characters haven't too much either. Outside of Knuckles, who was able to get that Sonic movie stimulus package thanks to Sonic Movie 2, where he received his aforementioned show. He also received his own prologue for Sonic Frontiers. Knuckles hasn't been abandoned or is being completely looked over. He has gotten the spotlight on numerous occasions. I even still think that there's a lot of opportunity to do stuff with the Knuckles character going forward. I think if Sega took the same approach with Knuckles in 2022, like they did with Shadow in 2024, we could be looking at another very popular character within Knuckles. But I think Sega, as well as other people, knew that yes, while Knuckles is very popular and has a big fan following, he's not Shadow. Despite Shadow being introduced into the franchise around 8 years after Knuckles was, he was able to build his reputation as a very popular, iconic character very quickly. And it also helps that he is intended to be a direct mirror of Sonic, who is, Sonic, one of the most iconic characters in all of history. There is just more draw there. You haven't seen a lot of stuff with Tails, you haven't seen a lot of stuff with Amy in recent years. And I think that comes down to a lot of characterization. Shadow is a very well-defined character, and yes, that has benefited from him receiving his own solo material. Tails and Amy have been around for a long time and have made a lot more appearances in general than Shadow has over the past 10 years. But still, despite that, they haven't been able to nail down the characteristics or traits or really excel the popularity of Tails or Amy due to those characters being in weird states of limbo. I think that you're slowly seeing them trying to figure out a way to make those two work, as I believe believe Tails and Amy, in terms of Sonic's main cast, are the two most lost at the moment. I mean, you can look at the highs that Tails had as a character in the Adventure era, and then cut to Sonic Forces in 2017, which in the grand scheme of things wasn't that long ago, even though we are creeping up on the 10-year mark of that game. Or Amy in the shift that she had in the mid-2010s, where she went from that ultra-obsessed hyper fangirl to an incredibly more subdued, responsible, independent character, which we could talk about the characterization of these characters all we want, but the point is that because they've been so incredibly not well defined in recent years, they haven't been able to draw enough interest from not only Sega in terms of making projects for them, because there's nothing to really do there at this point, but also fan intrigue. I know there's a bunch of fans of Tails, Amy, even Knuckles, who has, like we said, been receiving stuff, but I think a big problem that the fans are having is that the other characters that we've been talking about haven't been given the same opportunity as Shadow. You have to remember, before last year, Shadow was still a question mark. There wasn't a lot of really good stuff going on with his character. Like I said, he wasn't really even being used that much at all. I think Sega knew that Shadow was a money bag waiting to be opened. They used him in the Sonic Forces marketing, even gave us episode Shadow. Shadow was able to receive that because, like I said earlier, through the early conception of the character and the lineage he's been able to have, there's a lot of Shadow iconography that has become iconic, and there is a reputation behind the character that is still beloved, regardless of past projects that came out in relation to the character that weren't great. No matter which way you slice it, characters like Tails, Amy, even Knuckles don't really touch Shadow in terms of that popularity. Hence why Shadow is able to receive a lot more content and material, specifically solo material, separated from Sonic and Friends. He is simply the most financially viable character outside of Sonic in the franchise. Also, part of this, I think, is that Sega needed to prove to themselves that a character outside of Sonic can sell on their own. For the longest time, ever since Sonic Colors, I would say, Sega hasn't even really been trying to do much with Sonic's extended cast. I think you could even extend that back to Sonic Unleashed, where we went from the 06 cast, which was large and grand and vast, to a very stripped down collection of Sonic, Tails, and Amy. It was just Sonic for a while, and that was the right move. Sonic wasn't necessarily selling that well on his own or doing that well as a brand. You can't really do things with other characters individually. But now, in the 2020s, where Sonic has become a very viable character in the modern cultural zeitgeist, you can take that risk of doing things with other characters, which they did with Shadow the Hedgehog in particular. The Knuckles series was very much on Paramount's accord. They wanted to make that. If it was up to Sega, I genuinely don't think we would have received that, and that's part of it. I think that Sega needs to dip their toe more into giving other characters their own spotlight in some way. It doesn't mean giving them their own game, but give them something to do. I feel like Tails has been starving for some kind of spotlight for a while. Yes, he's Sonic's sidekick, so he's been featured in a butt ton of stuff, but I think fans want to see a little more than just Tails Tube. Amy doesn't receive anything, and I think that, like I said, is in large part due to her being very lost as a character. I don't even think Sega knows what to do with her outside of her being the girl of the group. Companies are going to go to what works, and what works is Sonic and Shadow. And that leads us into the next conversation. Is Shadow now overshadowing Sonic? This is a tricky question because it's Sonic at the end of the day. Sonic will be the more iconic character really no matter what happens. I genuinely think that there is no way for Sonic to be overshadowed by any member of his supporting cast in terms of popularity. The franchise is called Sonic the Hedgehog, named after the character. This started with him. There's 10 years of history with Sonic without Shadow before Shadow existed. Don't get me wrong, Shadow's been around for a while, with next year being his 25th anniversary. Sonic is still on the front of the cover for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. Yes, Sonic X Shadow Generation, Shadow took the front because the main selling point of that game was the fact that it was basically a new Shadow game, with Sonic Generations being ported onto modern consoles. Yes, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds was announced with a Shadow teaser, but that was because the trailer came in the year of Shadow, released in the same month that Sonic Movie 3 was coming out. And the trailers after that, Sonic very much so takes the front stage, gets the spotlight. The next mainline Sonic game, I don't even know if Shadow will be featured in that. He surely wasn't in Frontiers. We'll see what they plan on doing with the character in the future. I think the question needs to go to, is there just too much Shadow right now? And I don't really think so. The biggest issue that people are taking with all of this Shadow hype as a result of that new Shadow trademark being made is that he is now taking the spotlight away from all the other characters. And I entirely disagree with that. Yes, 100% Shadow gets more love, opportunity, different kind of projects than any other character in the franchise outside of Sonic. But I think at the end of the day, this is for the better. The better that Shadow shadow projects do, solo shadow projects to be specific, it opens the door for other characters to receive their own stuff as well. Even if that might not immediately result in a Knuckles game, or a Tails game, or a Silver game, or an Amy game, they could be featured more prominently in shows, get more animated specials, maybe get their own little sub-game attached to a port, or have a larger presence in an upcoming mainline project. I would not be surprised at all if Sega is using Shadow and his financial viability as a litmus test to see if they're able to get these other characters to work on their own as well. But I don't think any of those characters will be able to necessarily reach the highs of the Shadow character. It doesn't mean they can't work on their own as well. Shadow 100% has taken the spotlight and has become one of the most important characters in the entire Sonic brand, and is not too far off from being the co-lead of this franchise alongside Sonic. But I do not think that is a bad thing. I think that Shadow is a great character. I think that it is great that they're using him. And remember, for the past 10-something plus years, Sonic was the only real character getting representation. His supporting cast for the most part was shoved off to the side, and the characterization of them was terrible. We were begging for years for them to give other characters a shot, including Shadow. Everybody loves Shadow, and we're finally getting it. So the last thing I want this fanbase to do is be upset about it. It's not like the Shadow projects have been bad either. I think everybody for the most part loves Sonic X Shadow Generations, as well as Sonic Movie 3 and all the stuff we've been getting with that character. The last thing we want to do is complain about getting good stuff. I understand the want and desire to see other characters represented, and we will get that at some point. But I think that fans need to understand that there are simply levels to it, and Shadow is a few levels ahead of the other characters, no matter how much you might view them in the same field. I of course want to see other Sonic characters get their time in the spotlight, but we're not even 2 full years into Shadow's renaissance. So me personally, I'm going to choose to enjoy Shadow's time in the spotlight, because you never know, it might not last forever. And I encourage you guys to do the same. Enjoy the time we're getting with Shadow, because not only could we not see that happen again and all the focus goes back onto Sonic, but another character that you want to see get the spotlight might get it and take it away from all the other characters again, and then we'll be repeating the same song and dance. So in conclusion, no, I do not think that Sonic is being overshadowed. Has Shadow partially overshadowed Sonic's other supporting cast? For sure. But at the end of the day, I don't think that that is a bad thing. It only opens the door to those characters getting a chance later down the line in the future. Remember, Iizuka has said that he wants to do year ofs for other characters who are getting a spotlight in movies. Don't be surprised if you get some pretty cool Amy content coming up soon, or even Metal Sonic, or when Sonic Movie 5 hits and we maybe get Silver, if Silver finally gets his time to shine. Sonic is coming up on his 35th anniversary. That's a long time to be alive, and I'm sure there will be 35 more years and beyond. So enjoy these short few years that you're getting with Shadow, because we've been begging them for a while, and we should enjoy it, because we're getting great stuff with that character, and look forward to the other content we're getting with the other characters soon. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love all of you guys so much. Feel free to follow my social media. Links to my Twitter and Instagram are in the description below. You can follow those buttons to look at my life, future content, and all things Sonic the Hedgehog. But most importantly, if you're not subscribed, make sure that you are subscribed. This is the #1 destination on YouTube for all things Sonic the Hedgehog. Whether it's video games, TV shows, movies, comic books, merchandise, and more, we talk about it all. We have so many amazing videos in the works for you guys. I love all of you guys so much. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
Right by the motherfucking seaside, dog. Everything I see, I got a dream. I thought these leaves would go and take me out the dark. I know everything I wanted to find away.